Shalom, shalom, brothers. All praises to the mighty Yahweh. Hallelujah. It's the Unity Ghost coming back at you. I'm going to go into the Circle 7 Quran. If you don't own one, then it only costs about $8 on Amazon. That's where I got mine. If you can find it on the street, I could not find it. Downtown, I had to order mine. But it's a really cheap book, and it's a cheap lie. So I'm going to go through the book. I've scanned the pages, and I'm just going to show you some BS in this book. I didn't even prepare for this, but I've seen that it's been over a month since I had a video, so I want to share this garbage in the Circle 7. Let me begin. You see right here, it says in chapter, that's 20, that's 16. As superstitious people are the Jews. They have a faith that they have borrowed from the idol worshippers in other lands, that at the end of every year they may heap up all their sins upon the head of some man set apart to bear their sins. The man becomes a scapegoat for the multitudes, and they believe that when they drive him forth into the wilds or into the foreign land, they are released from sins. So every spring before the feast, they choose a prisoner from the prison of the land, and by a form of their own, they fain would make him bear their sins away. Right here, that's just retarded. Right here, it's saying that they get the Jews, and the Jews every year get a man to bear their sin, to kill him. So this is probably the reason why they say Christ, they killed Christ to bear their sins, maybe. I don't know. Right here, we see on the next page, it says, and in verse 22 in chapter 16, and one, a man of the deity, stood forth and said, Isaiah said, he shall be bruised for our transgressions, and by his stripes we shall be healed. And Jay laid all the bruises and mangled on the ground. And high priest called out, saying, Stay, stay, you man. Behold, the guards of Herod come, and they will crucify this man. Check out verse 27 to expedite. It says, a man named Simeon from Cyrene, a friend of Jay, was near the scene, and since the bruised and wounded Jay could not bear his cross, they laid it on the shoulders of this man and made him bear it to Calvary. So right here, Christ did not bear the cross, but this Simeon bared the cross to Calvary. Let's continue. Right here, we're going to see something else in the New Testament that the Circle 7 stole. It's in the New Testament. This is chapter 17, verse 18. It says, Now Claudius and his wife were in the Tiber in a little boat. A storm swept from the sea, and the boat was wrecked, and Claudius and his wife were sinking down to death. And Jay came and took them by the hands and said, Claudius and Juliet, arise and walk with me on the waves. And they arose and walked with him upon the waves. And 1,000 people saw 3 walk on the waves, and saw them reach the land, and they were all amazed. So right here we're seeing that not only did Christ walk on water, but he had 2 other people walking on water with him. Not only that, but they were walking on waves. As we continue, and maybe they didn't, get off balance. But let's continue. This is Christ speaking. I'm gonna go to verse 20, same chapter 17, verse 25 said, and Jay will lift the sons and daughters of the human race, yea, every one of them, from darkness and from the graves of carnal things to light and everlasting life. Right here it said he only go to the children of Israel, but he says every one of the human race. Verse 28 says, and they will point the way to teach the gospel of the holy breath and the resurrection of the dead. Right here, verse 30 says, the priests of Helopis were in their temple, met to celebrate the resurrection of the brother Nazarite. They knew that he had risen from the dead. So of course he stood on the if you guys can read all this yourself, you can pause it, read this garbage. I'm gonna skip a couple things. Verse 33 says, and Jay stood upon a sacred pedestal. The master stood and said, all hail. The great bells of the temple rang, and all the temple was ablaze with light. And Jay said, all honor to the masters of this temple of the sun. So right here, as we see in Deuteronomy chapter 4, starting at verse 15, it talks about worshiping the sun, moon, stars. Well, Christ is now in the temple of the sun with pagan priests. But this is the Circle 7 Quran, and this is the type of Christ that the Moors follow. They follow a pagan Christ. But let's continue. Right here, let me zero this in. Again, I wish I could make it a little bigger for y'all. It is you guys can read this. It said, it's the fourth, it's life on earth, and it's now let's read this garbage. Okay. This is when Christ died, resurrection. Verse 20 says, the master of all times, he met in the grand assemblies. He stood forth and told the story of his life on earth and his death and sacrifice for man. Verse 22, to give glory, give them the key of life and of death and of the resurrection of the dead. Okay, now let me tell you it shows you when the Christ rose right here. Verse 25, the garden of Solomon was silent on the Sabbath day. The Jewish soldiers watched and no one else approached the tomb. But on the following night, the scene was changed. At midnight, every Jewish soldier heard the voice which said, Adon Mishi Kumi, which means, Lord J, rise. And they supposed again that the friends of J were, and they were alert coming up to take the body of their Lord away. So right here you see that it was a voice telling them to rise Saturday night. Now the thing about that is he's supposed to be in the heart of the earth 3 days and 3 nights. But Saturday night is telling him to rise. Further proving that the New Testament is garbage. And the Holy Quran. Verse 32 says, and then the earth began to I can't even read that. This book is garbage for real. Behold, an angel come. I don't want to read this one. You guys can read all this. If you keep reading, let me read this because this is some good stuff. And they heard again, Adon Meshu Kumi, and then the white robe form tramped on the Roman seal, and they tore it into shreds and looked in the mighty stone in his hand. And though it were a pebble from the brook, they cast it to the side. And Jay opened his eyes and said, all hail the rising sun, the coming of the day of righteousness. So he always talking about the sun because he's a pagan in this book. And he folded up his burial gown, his headbands, and his coverings, and laid them aside. He arose and for a moment stood beside the white robed form. The weaker soldiers fell to the ground and hid their faces in their hands. The stronger stood and watched. They saw the body of the Nazarene transmute. They saw it change from mortal to immortal form and then disappear. So right here, Christ is changing from mortal to immortal form. He transmuted in front of the people. So that's the type of powers. Christ got a lot of powers in these different books. Let's continue. We see right here, we see Christ being a pagan again. He's being a pagan. It says here, and Jay came and sat with them. A crown of light was on his head. And when the silence ended, Casper said, a master from the royal council of the Silent Brotherhood is here. Let's give him praise. Let us give praise. And all the priests and masters stood and said, all hail. What message from the royal council do you bring? And Jay said, my brothers of the Silent Brotherhood, peace on earth, goodwill to man. The problem of the age has been solved. The Son of Man has risen from the dead, has shown that human flesh can be transformed into the flesh divine. Before the eyes of man, this flesh which I come to you was changed with the speed of light from human flesh, and so I am the message that I bring to you. And to you I come, the first of all the race to be transmuted to the image of the deity. So basically when he was transmutating to the image of the deity. So he wasn't regularly the image of the deity. Right here it says, a halo rested on his head and light alike the light of the sun filled all the room. So yeah. JC had a halo on his head in this book too. I'm just trying to show you some garbage real quick. This is a quick run through of the garbage in the Circle 7. You guys can check this book if you want to freeze this and check this what this page say. It say John the Baptist was the Egyptian sage and he was in Egypt for years. They talk about the whiteness of her bosom. I don't really want to go into all that. That's garbage. Trust thy secrets in her breast and her counsel. Okay. Say teach him science and life will be useful. Teach him religion. Let me go here. Teach him science and his life will be useful. Teach him religion and his death shall be happy. Well, we don't have a religion. Okay? But check this out. The piety of a child is sweeter than the incense of Persian offering to the sun. So right here it's still talking about giving offerings to the sun. As I said before, this is just a quick overview of this garbage book right here. Let me show you some more garbage in this book. It say right here, Elihu and Salome took Mary and Elizabeth out of the sacred grove. So right there in the grove, which the Almighty said, do not make groves. But here's a grove. And also, I heard today that the Mormons told me today that their prophet, I forgot his dumb name, but he made a grove. And he was praying at the grove, and that's how he got his revelation. Check out verse 11. It says, who are ordained to lay a solid rock, a sure foundation stone on which the temple of the perfect man shall rest, a temple that shall never be destroyed. So it said the temple of the perfect man. And now Christ is saying this at the same time the temple of Yahweh is here. He's talking about the temple of a perfect man. Why? And check out verse 13. This is another lie. It's a blatant lie. It say the age has passed. The gate to another age flies open. The age touch of time. This is the preparation age of soul, the kingdom of Emmanuel, of the deity in man. So right here, the kingdom of Emmanuel. It's not talking, but of course, it's talking about Isaiah 7 and 4. They're trying to say that Christ is Emmanuel. We know that's a lie. This is just another dagger in the heart of the Circle 7 Quran. But here's another one. Verse 20 said that naught can make them but love, but that Allah so loved the world that he gave it clothed his son in flesh that man can comprehend. So right here, it doesn't say, so God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, blah, blah, blah. But it says it a little different in the Circle 7 Quran. Okay? Verse 21, the only savior of the world is love, and J, the son of Mary, come to manifest that love to man. So yeah, you know that's garbage. Right here, we see that they have another sacred grove, even though the Almighty said not to make groves in the law. But there's a sacred grove. And verse 5 says they got two selves, the higher self and the lower self. Okay? Let's continue. Well, I'm going to stop it at that. It's been a little long.